Jealousy sparked between Ana and Sandra. The night was bright with flashing lights. Cameras clicked, and voices rose as famous stars walked the red carpet. In that moment, everyone's eyes seemed to follow Ana de Armas. Her dress shimmered under the lights, her smile lit up the crowd, and reporters leaned closer just to hear her words. People clapped, people shouted her name, and for a few minutes she was the center of the world. Sandra Bullock stood only a few steps away, waiting patiently. She had walked carpets before, she had faced cameras before, but tonight something inside her felt heavy. She noticed how every flash turned to Ana, how every cheer grew louder when Ana moved. Sandra kept smiling, but deep inside, a spark of jealousy burned quietly. The hook came when KeanuReeves appeared beside them. Unlike many, he wore no arrogance, carried no need for the spotlight. He simply walked with a soft smile, dressed in simple black, nodding gently to the crowd. The cheers rose again, but he did not act proud. Instead, he slowed down when he saw Sandra and gave her a warm glance, like reminding her that she was not invisible. Cameras captured Ana's glow, but Keanu's eyes rested with kindness on Sandra, as if saying, "You matter too." Sandra felt her chest tighten. She had known Keanu for years. She had laughed with him on sets, shared stories on long nights of filming, but tonight she felt small in comparison to Ana's rising star. The world loved youth, beauty, the new shining face, and Ana had all of it. Sandra's smile stayed for the cameras, but behind it was a storm she didn't dare show. She wondered if she was being silly. Why compare? Why let jealousy creep in? Still, the feeling was there, whispering quietly, and the whispers hurt. The moment turned sharper when one reporter shouted loudly, "Keanu, Keanu, can we have a picture with Ana? Just the two of you." The words hung in the air. Sandra froze. She smiled wider, pretending it did not matter, but deep inside she felt left out, like she was fading away in front of the world. Ana, surprised but polite, nodded, and the cameras rushed forward. Keanu, however, paused. He looked at Sandra first. Without saying a word, he gently reached his hand toward her and motioned her to join them. He would not pose without her. The crowd hesitated. Reporters wanted the picture of Keanu and Ana, not the trio, but Keanu's eyes stayed calm and firm. Sandra slowly stepped closer, unsure, still smiling, though her hands trembled a little. When the photo was finally taken, the cameras flashed not just for beauty, but for unity. Keanu had made a silent choice. He reminded the world of respect without needing speeches. This act touched Sandra deeply. The jealousy that had been rising inside her softened. She realized he had seen through her quiet pain, and instead of ignoring it, he lifted her back into the moment. His humility did not shine with noise, but with quiet strength. He reminded everyone that fame was empty without kindness, and that no star should make another feel small. Ana too noticed this. She looked at Sandra differently, with more warmth, and she realized that she did not want to be the reason another woman felt unseen. She reached for Sandra's hand and held it as the cameras flashed again. It was a simple moment, but powerful. Two women, once divided by jealousy, were now connected by respect. Behind the flashing lights, the night carried a lesson. Respect is louder than attention. Humility is brighter than any spotlight, and kindness can turn jealousy into strength. The story was only beginning, but already hearts were moved, and people watching could feel something inside them shift. When whispers turn into storms, the red carpet night ended, but the whispers did not fade. The next morning, newspapers and online headlines carried endless photos of Ana and Keanu smiling together. Their faces were side by side on covers, their laughter captured in glowing frames. Sandra's presence was there, but small, often pushed to the corner of a picture or cropped out completely. For the world, the story was clear. Keanu and Ana stole the spotlight. Sandra sat quietly in her living room, holding a newspaper in her hands. She had been through decades of fame. She knew how headlines worked, but this time it struck a nerve. She read comments online, some praising Ana's beauty, others talking about a fresh new duo. Sandra's heart ached as if her long years of work, her awards, her respect had been erased in a single evening. She felt old in a world that only wanted new. The hook came when her phone rang. It was a close friend from the industry, speaking gently but honestly. "Sandra, people are talking. They're saying maybe Keanu and Ana could be Hollywood's next power pair." The words were like knives. Sandra forced a laugh, but inside she felt her world shake. Jealousy was no longer a whisper, it was a storm building inside her chest. Meanwhile, Ana was struggling too. At first she felt joy at the attention, but later, when she saw the cropped photos and the cruel comments about Sandra being irrelevant, guilt began to rise. She had admired Sandra for years, even looked up to her, and the idea that her rise might have pushed someone she respected into the shadows made her restless. She replayed Keanu's quiet gesture in her mind, the way he had insisted Sandra join the photo, and it kept her awake at night. Keanu, however, seemed untouched by the noise. When reporters called him for comments, he never spoke about trends, never played into gossip. Instead, he said softly, "I was honored to walk with two incredible women who inspire me." His words were simple, but they stood out like calm water in a storm. Still, not everyone listened. The media wanted sparks, not calmness. They wanted rivalry, not respect. The conflict deepened a week later at a charity event. Once again, Ana and Sandra found themselves in the same hall, surrounded by cameras and whispers. People watched closely, waiting to see if there would be tension. Sandra walked in first, her gown elegant but her smile forced. When Ana entered, the crowd buzzed. Sandra's heart raced, not because of Ana, but because of the eyes on her. She feared every glance, feared every comparison, feared being seen as less. Then came the unexpected twist. One of the reporters asked loudly, "Sandra, do you feel overshadowed by Ana's success?" The hall went silent. Sandra froze. The question was cruel, and everyone knew it. Cameras zoomed in, waiting for drama. This was the moment when jealousy could explode, when one bitter answer could destroy years of respect. But Sandra did not speak. Before she could even form words, Keanu stepped forward. His face was calm, his voice steady. "No one here overshadows anyone. Sandra has given the world decades of art, of strength, of laughter. Ana is bringing her own light now. Why compare when both shine in their own way?" His words silenced the hall. Reporters looked at each other, unsure how to respond. Keanu had destroyed the question with humility, with truth. Sandra felt her eyes sting. In that instant, she realized Keanu was not just protecting her reputation. He was protecting something bigger, the value of respect in a world that loved tearing people apart. Ana, too, felt her throat tighten. She looked at Sandra with new eyes, and she whispered softly, "You inspire me." Yet, even with these words, the storm inside Sandra did not fully fade. Jealousy is not washed away in a single night. It lingers, it waits, it tests the heart. As she smiled and stood beside them, she wondered quietly, could she truly overcome the feeling, or would it rise again, stronger than before? The story was far from over. The silent distance days passed, but the air between Sandra and Ana grew heavier. They smiled for cameras, stood together in photos, even laughed politely when fans asked for autographs. But beneath the surface, there was a quiet distance. Jealousy had softened after Keanu's words, yet it was not gone. Sandra carried it like a shadow that followed her everywhere. She did not speak about it openly, but she felt it each time a headline compared her past with Ana's present. The hook came one evening during a private dinner. Keanu had invited both women, hoping to bring peace where tension lived. The restaurant was quiet, the lights dim, the table set simply with flowers. Keanu sat between them, calm as always, speaking in his gentle way. He asked about their projects, about the roles they loved most, about memories from the past. His words carried no weight of gossip, no hint of comparison. He wanted them to see each other not as rivals, but as women with stories worth sharing. Ana leaned forward and spoke honestly. "Sandra, I grew up watching your movies. You don't know how much you shaped my dream to act. I would copy your lines in front of a mirror. When I finally met you, I could not believe I was standing next to the woman I admired." Her voice trembled as she said it because it was not flattery, it was truth. Sandra listened and her heart ached. She wanted to believe the words, but jealousy twisted them into something else. Part of her whispered, "She admires you, yes, but she is also replacing you." She forced a smile and said thank you, but inside she felt her chest tighten. Keanu noticed. He always noticed. He did not interrupt, but he gently placed his hand on Sandra's arm, reminding her that she was not forgotten. The twist came when a group of fans outside spotted them through the glass. They cheered and pressed their phones against the window, shouting for Ana and Keanu. Cameras flashed through the glass, but few voices called Sandra's name. In that moment, Sandra's smile broke. She excused herself, stood, and walked quickly toward the restroom. Her eyes filled with tears she had tried so hard to hide. Ana sat frozen, guilt crawling through her. She whispered, "I didn't want this. I never wanted to hurt her." Keanu turned to her and shook his head softly. "This is not about blame. Jealousy is a human thing. Even the strongest hearts can feel it." In the restroom, Sandra stared at her reflection. She saw the lines near her eyes, the tiredness from years in the industry, and she felt small. She whispered to herself, "Maybe my time has passed." The thought was sharp, cutting her pride deeply. She wanted to be strong, but the storm inside her had grown louder. When she returned, Keanu looked at her with quiet concern. He did not ask what happened, but his silence spoke enough. Ana reached for Sandra's hand across the table. "Please don't see me as your rival," she said softly. "If I shine, it's only because you showed the path before me." Those words touched Sandra, but they also frightened her. Because deep inside, she was not sure if she could believe them. She felt trapped between admiration and envy, between respect and insecurity. That night, as she lay awake in her bed, Sandra realized this was not just about Ana. It was about herself. It was about her fear of being forgotten, her fear of fading while the world celebrated someone new. And fear, she knew, could either destroy her or push her toward something greater. The storm was not ending. It was only preparing for its next strike. The breaking point, the weeks rolled on, and every event seemed to test Sandra more. Ana was invited to more shows, more premieres, more interviews. Her face was on billboards, her name whispered in excited tones. Sandra still had her projects, her fans, and her respect, but she felt the shift. The world was hungry for new stories, and she feared she was becoming a chapter people had already read. The hook came on a night when the three of them were invited to an awards ceremony. The hall was grand, filled with golden light, and the air buzzed with the energy of stars. Sandra walked in wearing a gown that glowed with silver threads. She carried herself with dignity, but her heart was restless. Keanu walked beside her, steady as always, while Ana arrived moments later, stunning in emerald green. The crowd roared louder for her, and Sandra felt that familiar ache inside. As the night went on, the award for Inspirational Artist of the Year was announced. When the presenter read the name, the hall erupted. "Ana de Armas." Sandra clapped politely, but her chest felt heavy. Ana walked on stage, trembling with joy, tears in her eyes. She thanked her family, her mentors, and then she paused, looked directly at Sandra. "I would not be here if I had not watched Sandra Bullock for years. She taught me through her work that women can be strong, funny, vulnerable, and powerful all at once. She is my hero." The hall clapped. People turned to Sandra, smiling, nodding. Yet instead of comfort, Sandra felt exposed. Her eyes watered, but the storm of jealousy twisted the moment. Part of her heart whispered, "She is thanking you while replacing you." Sandra smiled, but her hands shook. The twist came during the after-party. Sandra overheard two young actors talking near the table of drinks. One said, "Ana is the new Sandra Bullock. Hollywood always needs a fresh face, and she's it." The words pierced through her like glass. She tried to walk away, but her foot caught on the edge of the carpet. Her drink spilled across the floor, and suddenly everyone was staring. The embarrassment burned hotter than fire. Keanu rushed to her side. He helped her up gently, his voice calm. "It's just a spill, nothing more." But to Sandra it was everything. She felt her dignity slipping, her place fading. She pulled her hand away and whispered, "Keanu, I don't belong here anymore." Then she walked out, leaving the hall stunned. Ana followed her outside, finding her standing near the street, her shoulders shaking. "Sandra, please listen," Ana said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to take your place. I wanted to stand beside you, not above you." Sandra turned, her eyes red. "But that's not how the world sees it. They only see you now. They call you the new me, as if I am already gone." Her words carried years of fear and pain. The unexpected moment came when Keanu stepped out and joined them. He looked at Sandra, then at Ana, his voice firm but gentle. "Fame will always shift. The world will always chase the new. But respect, kindness, and the way you carry yourself, those things never fade. Sandra, no one can erase what you've given. Ana is not here to replace you. She is here because you opened the door before her. The question is not if the world will forget you. The question is if you will forget yourself." His words struck deeply. Sandra froze, her breath shaking. She realized her fight was not against Ana, not even against the world. It was against her own fear. But fear does not vanish easily. She looked at Keanu, then at Ana, torn between pride and pain. In that moment, the storm inside her reached its breaking point. The night ended in silence, but the silence carried weight. It was the silence before a choice, one that would either heal her heart or shatter it completely. The mirror of truth, the days after the award night were heavy for Sandra. She stopped going to public events, avoided calls, and even canceled a few interviews. She told the world she was tired, that she needed rest, but inside the truth was different. She was afraid of facing the cameras again, afraid of being compared, afraid of being seen as less. Her home became quiet, too quiet, filled with shadows that only echoed her doubts. The hook came late one night when Keanu visited. He did not knock loudly or call ahead. He simply showed up with a small bag of groceries and a quiet smile. Sandra opened the door, her eyes tired. "Keanu, why are you here?" she asked softly. He held up the bag and said, "You probably forgot to eat. I thought you might need company." They sat in her kitchen, eating in silence for a while. Sandra finally spoke, her voice breaking. "Keanu, do you know what it feels like to be forgotten while you're still here? I spent my whole life building something, and now it feels like it's slipping through my fingers." Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, "And I hate myself for being jealous of someone I should be proud of." Keanu listened, his eyes calm, his presence steady. "Jealousy is not weakness," he said softly. "It's proof that you care, but what matters is what you do with it. You can let it poison you, or you can let it remind you of what truly matters." The twist came when Ana herself appeared at Sandra's door the next morning. She stood nervously, holding a small box wrapped in ribbon. Sandra hesitated before opening the door, but something in Ana's eyes, something humble and raw, kept her from turning away. Ana handed her the box. Inside was a framed photograph. It was from years ago, a candid shot of Sandra laughing on set during one of her most iconic films. Under it was a note in Ana's handwriting. "You inspired me when I had nothing. Without you, I would not be here." Sandra held the frame, her chest tightening. The gesture was simple, but it carried weight. Ana's success had not erased her. Her legacy lived in the dreams of others. Yet still, part of Sandra's heart clung to fear. That evening, an unexpected challenge arrived. A major magazine released a cover story titled "The New Queen of Hollywood." Ana de Armas replaces Sandra Bullock. The words were cruel, the images sharper than knives. Sandra read it in silence, her hands trembling. The world had spoken, at least through the press, and it said she was done. Ana was furious when she saw it. She called Sandra immediately, her voice shaking. "They're wrong. I don't replace you. I can't replace you." But Sandra only whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe my time is over." The tension exploded when both women were invited to a talk show a week later. The host, looking for drama, leaned forward and asked the question everyone whispered but few dared to say aloud. "Sandra, do you feel jealous of Ana's rise?" The hall went silent. Millions were watching. It was the moment Sandra had feared. Every camera, every eye, every headline waiting. Her breath shook. She could deny it, laugh it off, pretend, or she could speak the truth. Her hands tightened on the armrest, and finally she whispered, "Yes." The audience gasped. She continued, her voice trembling but real. "Yes, I have felt jealous. Yes, I have felt afraid because I am human, but I am also proud of Ana because she is the proof that what we build does not die, it lives in others." The audience rose in applause. The twist was not her downfall, it was her honesty. Keanu smiled quietly from the front row. Ana's eyes filled with tears. And for the first time in weeks, Sandra felt lighter, as if the storm inside her had begun to break. But storms do not vanish in a single breath. The question now was whether Sandra could truly accept her place, not as someone replaced, but as someone eternal. The light that never fades. The days after the talk show were different. The clip of Sandra's honesty spread across the world. People shared it not as gossip, but as truth. Headlines no longer spoke of rivalry, but of courage. Sandra admits her fear and inspires millions, one article read. Fans wrote letters, young actors posted messages, and strangers thanked her for showing that even the strongest stars carried doubts. But the hook came when an old director, someone who had once worked with Sandra years ago, called her personally. "I watched that interview," he said warmly. "Do you know what you reminded me of? The first time you walked into an audition. You were raw, nervous, but you carried honesty. That's why people loved you, and that is why they always will." The words sank deep into her heart. Still, the world had not stopped celebrating Ana. She was everywhere, on screens, in magazines, in conversations. Yet now, instead of bitterness, Sandra began to see her differently. She saw a woman carrying the same weight she once carried, the pressure to prove herself, the fear of losing it all. Ana was not her rival, she was her reflection at a different time in life. The twist came when both women were invited to co-host a charity gala together. Sandra hesitated at first, afraid the old whispers would return, but Keanu reminded her gently, "You cannot hide from the world forever. Sometimes healing comes when you step back into the light." The night of the gala, the hall was filled with stars, but the focus was not on glamour. It was on raising hope for children in need. Ana spoke passionately on stage, and Sandra followed with her own words, steady and heartfelt. When the two of them stood together, holding hands, the hall erupted in applause. The cameras captured not rivalry, but unity. The most powerful moment came when Keanu walked to the podium. His speech was simple, almost quiet, but every word carried weight. "Fame fades, beauty changes." But kindness, respect, and humility, those are the things that live forever. Tonight, we are not here to compare, but to give, and to remind each other that no one loses their light because someone else begins to shine. The hall fell into silence before thunderous applause filled the room. For Sandra, it was a turning point. She realized that the storm she had carried was never about Ana, never about the cameras. It was about her own fear of being forgotten. But as she looked at the crowd, at the lives she had touched, at the young actors who still admired her, she knew her story was not ending. It was simply changing. Ana hugged her tightly backstage, whispering, "You are not replaced. You are the reason I'm here." And for the first time, Sandra believed it. The jealousy that once burned inside her was replaced by something stronger: acceptance, gratitude, and peace. The final scene closed with the three of them, Sandra, Ana, and Keanu, standing together away from the stage, sharing quiet laughter. There were no flashing lights, no screaming cameras, just friendship, respect, and the reminder that true greatness does not come from being seen. It comes from lifting others when they need it most. Sandra walked away from that night with her heart lighter, her spirit stronger, and her storm finally at rest. Because in the end, the light of humility and kindness never fades.